By now, you've probably heard of KDE Linux, formerly known as Project Banana, and whoever did the design for the KDE Linux site had a lot of fun with that former name. Right here, right here, right here. Here, that's not a great looking banana. If you're curious why there's bananas all over the site, that would be why. Now, why was it originally called Project Banana? I don't know. This is a first-party Linux distro made by the KDE project, and you might be saying, well, what about that other first-party distro they have called KDE Neon? Neon is in a weird state, and it's a weird project. Not many people use it, not many people maintain it, because it doesn't really make sense as a user distro. So Neon is based on an old Debian base, but it has up-to-date KDE software. So they've got to do this weird, mismash of features where you have these old Debian libraries that are the majority of the system, but then you have to bring in new things that KDE requires to actually be able to run. So that causes problems, that causes bugs, and because it's based on that old Debian base, the software that users might want to install is going to be really old, so it just doesn't make any sense. Project Banana, KDE Linux, is meant to solve a lot of these problems, meant to bring it more up to date and sort of make it something people actually want to run. It is built off an Arch Linux base, fixing all of those dependency problems, but this video is about how, even though that is the case, it's not actually providing you that Arch packaging like you would see with SteamOS. This is more in line with projects like a Fedora Silverblue or a Bazzite. It's an atomic, it's an immutable system, it is an image-based system, and this is an article from Nate Graham. KDE Linux Deep Dive, package management is amazing, which is why we don't include it. This is about why packaging is really great and why it's awesome that distros have it, but it gets in the way of the goals of KDE Linux. And there are other distros that have similar goals, like Bazzite, like Silverblue, like other projects out there. Not everything needs to be that traditional model. It's okay that things are exploring this sort of new way of doing things, this new old way, because it's kind of more in line with what Android does, but new for the desktop space. In general, Nate likes package management, and unlike a lot of people in the Linux world, he didn't come from the Windows space, he actually came from the Mac world. And on Mac, yes, you do have Homebrew, but the majority of things you're installing, there's not really real package management. There's obviously the whole App Store thing, but like Windows, you download things from the internet, and in the Mac case, you just drag it into the applications folder, and then more complicated software is going to have the Windows-style widgets with no dependency management and no provision for uninstalling them later. But on Linux, everything in that regard is just better. If you want to install something, you just run the command, and then it's installed. And if you want to get rid of it, you just run the remove command, and then it's gone. That's all. No, weird going around through these weird installers, these Windows-style wizard things. You just install it, and uninstall it. However, Nate wants to make a distinction between package management to get add-on software and package management for assembling the base operating system. The former is incredibly convenient and amazing. The latter is a tool of power, best suited for use only by OS builders and true experts. I feel it's a problem that historically, we've used this amazing tool for both of those use cases, because building the base system from packages on user computers suffers from a number of nearly unsolvable challenges. They're challenges, but for people that know what they're doing, for people that want to run a system like a Gen 2 or an Arch Linux, they're amazingly powerful. But if you're the kind of person who just wants to run a system that you know just works, you're not going to be taking advantage of that power. I and many of you probably like having this power on your system and wouldn't even consider daily driving something that doesn't have this power available. But there's different use cases for a system, there's different people that are going to want to use a system, and because of that, there should be different ways to manage a system. It deteriorates and explodes. As you install, remove, and update packages on your system, you inevitably encounter problems over time. Conflicts and incompatibilities with add-on repos. Highs and bugs from orphan packages still present on the system. This is a bug where if you try to examine it, the bug seems to disappear, and there's no way to really easily identify where the problem is coming from. The ability to uninstall important functionality without realizing it, breaking the system. If you're running some basic distro, there's probably not a good reason why you can uninstall systemd, for example. If there is no replacement in the repos, that shouldn't be something that you can accidentally do. It should be possible for advanced users and for power users, but it should be something that you explicitly have to say, I know exactly what I'm doing, I know I'm about to break my system. And updates to break bootability due to some untested condition present only on your system. So some weird combination of packages that isn't the case on the base system that causes some weird sort of breakage. This is a problem that has happened a number of times in the history of Arch Linux. True experts and OS engineers can usually resolve these issues as they crop up, but what about everyone else? There's usually no recovery method exposed in a normal person-friendly manner, or at all. Usually there is a method somewhere, but you've kind of got to be willing to do some digging and do some research, and you're probably better off just reinstalling the system. You're just screwed unless you have a second computer or a phone set up to be able to talk to the distro developers on Matrix or IRC, and one can walk you through fixing it live, assuming you can find someone who actually has the free time to be able to do so. In most cases, a clean install is probably much easier if you break something that bad. It's not a targetable platform. No installation of a package-based operating system can be guaranteed to have the same set of system software and libraries as any other one. There's some general assumptions you can make, but if you have packages, you can, at the end of the day, do whatever you want with them. This means if you're a developer, your software can't make safe assumptions, and it's running in an untested environment pretty much all of the time. You can contend with this complexity via a forest of conditional, if this thing is present, enable that behavior logic, but versions of dependent libraries you didn't test with can still break your app, and users will report bugs that you can't reproduce. This is a problem I actually found when I was first using KDE on Arch. So, unlike GNOME, KDE does allow for a minimum installation, and because of that, you can install basically just the Plasma desktop. It comes with the settings and other things like that, but not most of the dependencies, not most of the additional software, so there are just random buttons which don't work. When you click on them, there's no feedback, nothing happens, it's just, it just breaks. This is something that maybe they don't intend to be a thing because they intend that people install the entirety of Plasma, but it is something they allow, and this can cause problems. It's a barrier to raising quality levels. Package-based OSs allow for and encourage self-service to fix problems, and this is a good thing. But it's less great for future you. After you've forgotten about your local fixes and encounter the same bugs the next time you reinstall on a new computer, or after the local fixes have become unnecessary and are now causing issues that nobody will be able to debug. It's also less great for the whole project, its ecosystem, and others who might encounter the same problems but lack your level of technical skill or available time for troubleshooting. It's good that you can fix your own problems. However, this can lead to you fixing your own problems and the problems never actually being fixed upstream. And it's not like these are entirely insurmountable problems. There are good distros out there like Fedora, where they make it so it's really difficult to remove those system critical packages. They have a huge repo that means you don't have to do this like mix and match of random different repos where things aren't tested against each other. They work hard on shipping a good product out of the box rather than making you fix bugs for yourself. And even something like Arch Linux, where, yes, it is something where you will have to go and build things yourself. It isn't something where it's just going to break. Most of the time, a breakage is few and far between, unless you go and do something stupid. Now, Arch is more willing to let you do something stupid, but you kinda gotta try a bit to do so. There's no solution that's better in every way, and worse in none. But the approach we've chosen in KDE Linux does solve the above problems. Again, it causes additional issues, but it solves the ones they want to solve. Stability. In KDE Linux, we build the base system out of Arch packages, but freeze the content and take responsibility for the result being functional. We don't offload responsibility onto the user. This is basically the same thing that SteamOS does. This is the same thing that Bazzite or the whole uBlue project does when it's built off of the Fedora line. This is a normal thing you see in the immutable space. It's just not common for your traditional distros. I guess in a sense you could argue something like a Debian, where they have their main things and then just slowly do security stuff after the fact, but big features don't come in until a big new update is available. Updating the system swaps out the old OS for the new one. It's both fast and safe, and you can keep around the old OS image, three of them, in fact, and easily roll back if you have a problem. It doesn't become quirky and degrade over time. My distro is too quirky, it broke. Yeah. Again, this is very much akin to the Android model, where you're not updating individual packages, you're updating to a new version of the operating system. It's very different from what we would normally do on Linux, but I don't think it's inherently a bad idea. Being a platform. With Flatpak, developers run a specific version of a discrete SDK and its corresponding runtime. This runtime will be the same on every user's computer. Now developers can make safe assumptions and reproduce bugs. At least bugs not caused by hardware problems or users' configurations differing from their own. And developers who target this platform make their apps available not only on KDE Linux, but also most other Linux-based operating systems as well. There are problems with Flatpak, of course. It's definitely not perfect. It's opinionated, restrictive, and can't be used for deep parts of the OS the way Snap can. There are Snap kernels. That's all I'll say on that. That's all that needs to be said. And multiple versions of each runtime end up consuming a lot of space. But it solves the platform problem, and traditional system-level package management just can't. There are technically methods to do so. I know, I hear you screaming in the comment section. Yes, I know, NixOS solves this. We're not talking about NixOS today. And quality. Every KDE Linux user is going to have image and video thumbnails, all the KDE wallpapers, the desktop cube effect, the most important feature, KDE Connect, a working installation of Plasma Vault, well-tuned power management, and support for as much exotic hardware as we could stuff in. None of this comes in optional add-on packages you can find yourself missing, you'll just automatically have it. If you find that something significant is missing or broken, you'll need to tell the developers, and then they can fix it for everyone. If you're an expert who likes fixing problems, you can still make those fixes. You'll just be doing it for everyone in the world and not just yourself. The project and its entire user base will benefit. Now, the system is not without its problems. Most notably, well, not having a package manager. Many things cannot or are not currently available through the Flatpak system, and don't really make any sense to include in the base operating system, right? Like, you wouldn't include every single random image editor and text editor in the base operating system. That would just be too much nonsense. And a lot of those aren't available through a system like Flatpak. Normally, you'd only be able to get them from your regular package manager. Now, for some of these things, they are going to be available through other stores like Snap. They might be available on things like Homebrew or the Nix package manager or App Image. So it's not like there's just this one method, but there's still going to be some things that are not covered. In those cases, you're probably going to have to go and compile things yourself, but hopefully that is a very small number of applications. And for command line tools, this is a bit weirder with Flatpak, because technically you can do it with Snap, and technically you can probably do it with Flatpak. It's just very much not intended for those you are very much reliant on Nix and Homebrew. Now, the lucky thing with Nix is Nix actually has the biggest package repo. How well those packages are maintained, on the other hand, that one's up for debate. Now, drivers are a harder problem. The ones that make sense to include, they've tried to include as many as possible. Support for printers, game controllers, file systems, fingerprint readers, drawing tablets, smart card readers, braille displays, YubiKeys, specialized audio and video processor box. A lot of this stuff is just available in the upstream kernel, and additional things they've tried to include as well, but you can't include everything. And there's going to be weird random hardware, like, for example, I don't know, some of the direct drive wheels that are not supported in the upstream kernel that probably are going to get missed by a project like KDE Linux. Input methods. KDE Linux aspires to pre-install state-of-the-art input methods so you don't have to install and configure everything yourself. However, we haven't reached this goal yet. We're building a virtual keyboard with built-in support for CJKV languages, but it's still a work in progress. As for just regular sort of typing stuff, I'm pretty sure all of that stuff is mostly in place. And the rest of the stuff here aren't actually problems. These are just, well, these two here are things that actually are working well. And obviously, when it comes to software development languages and toolkits, you wouldn't normally install these with your regular system package manager anyway. You want them to be project specific. Basically, we've tried to eliminate the need for traditional package management as much as we can, while preserving your ability to use a package management tool. If you're an expert or a developer who benefits from one, it should just be a user space package manager via container, homebrew, Nix, things like that. So it can't impact the stability of your system so strongly, and so any problems can be easily undone. And to be clear, if you prefer a traditional operating system, that's fine. There's no shortage of Linux-based operating systems using this model out there, and KDE Linux is an admittedly opinionated divergence from this. If KDE Linux is not the thing that you want, it's not the thing you need, don't use it. That's fine. Nate understands that different people have different requirements. But what are your thoughts? Do you care a lot about packaging? Do you like the immutable atomic model that KDE Linux is using? Or would you prefer having a more traditional packaging model, but can you see why they're trying to do what they're trying to do? I'd love to know. So, if you liked the video, go subscribe as well, and if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes, Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's gonna be it for me, and banana.